She's technically a fifth graduate in her master's degree, so this is the fifth defense, but this is the first defense by an honors scholar. So the previous four were graduate students. They got their bachelor's, they joined the master's degree. Alana is the first who was completing 2 degrees simultaneously over the last 3 years. She graduated with her bachelor's of science in biomedical science this past December, and now she's defending her master's thesis. She will talk about her papers, her first author conference proceedings papers, but she probably won't talk about all the awards that she got during this time. In particular, the ones that stood out were the travel grants from 3 different conferences, from Emerging Researchers National Conference, as well as from 2 IEEE conferences. Really competitive, very short list of winners every time from really big and famous universities from around the world, and then us. So quite an achievement in that regard. In terms of a little bit of the background on this research, it started in 2021 with us patenting the optimal design for concentric ring electrodes in terms of Laplacian accuracy. Once we patented our design and once we adapted the simulations to the better model of the electrode, we decided that a good way to license it would be to compare it directly to all the competitors. So in 2022, we published a series of papers in collaboration with the group at the Universitat Politécnica de Valencia. Again, extremely grateful to them for that collaboration. We compared our patented design to the Spasmedica mode bipolar electrodes or cold bipolar electrodes. We compared them to CRE Medical key leads. That's the paper that led to Alana's thesis. Because in that paper, other than just comparing our patented design to commercial electrode, we also determined the optimal coefficient for Laplacian estimation for that electrode, just because we could. Why not? And it turns out that those coefficients were substantially different from the coefficients that they've been using over the years in all of their equipment. Of course, the question was, does this difference in coefficients make a huge, has a huge effect on the quality of the resulting signal? Or is it almost the same signal, in which case there is no need to even bother and fix the equipment? That's the answer that Alana's thesis answers. I think you're going to enjoy the talk. This research project even had a little bit of suspense in it. What the first results suggest, how do they don't really agree with the simulations of human data, how we reconcile both at the end, so no spoiler alerts, but there is a little bit of suspense. It has a very clear application, which is another thing that I believe is important here. Alana will talk about exactly how it can be applied to real life. So even though some of it may seem like basic research, in reality it was very applied. Alana done all the work here. Every table, every graph has been built by her. She wrote a lot of MATLAB code. Very proud of what she was able to accomplish. So without further ado, ready? All right, let's get going.
Yad bine she Alana Benally inishia kin 10 tades dan nasha kitlichini nishla trabaha bashichin tratnesahni dashiche but ahni dashinala. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alana Benally. I am from Rock Point, Arizona. I am the Red House clan, born for the Water Edge clan. My maternal grandfather is the Tangle clan, and then my paternal grandfather is the Under His Cover clan. My thesis defense is based on 2 peer-reviewed conference proceeding papers through the well-known organization called the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, otherwise known as IEEE. IEEE provides a platform for researchers to share and present their research findings. I presented my first author publication in the summer of 2024 where I presented an oral presentation at the Sensors Application Symposium, SAS, in Naples, Italy. My first author publication was just presented a couple of weeks ago at the International Symposium on Biomedical Imaging, ISBI, in Houston, Texas. You'll see their logos. I don't think we can see the logos, sorry.
You can adjust. Is it too?
I don't know if we can see the logos.
We see it well, if we are using the PDF that you gave to us.
Okay.
We have open.
Okay,
Thank you, Dr. Cruz.
thank
We
you.
see that very, very well.
Okay, so you'll see their logos at the bottom of the slides with their respective measures. I would like to thank Diné College and the National Science Foundation for supporting my research on assessing the importance of optimal Laplacian estimation coefficients for the commercially available concentric ring electrodes on human data and the finite element method modeling. Okay, concentric ring electrodes, or CREs, are non-invasive and wearable.
You're not sharing the screen, you think? We cannot see. No, we're gonna follow the screen that you share and then also the PDF that we have on our computer. So we're no longer seeing, Elena.
Uh-oh. Oh, did we turn off?
Okay,
Oh.
I'm so sorry. Every once in a while, the camera may be turning off.
Okay.
Technical
Then-
difficulties. Can you please bring it up when it happens? Thank you.
Okay, so concentric ring electrodes, CREs, are non-invasive wearable electrophysical measurement sensors. The unique design of these sensors have found their way into numerous studies, ranging from source localization of high-frequency activity of epilepsy patients, to isochronal mapping to track electrical activity within the tissues, providing a source to track sleep patterns in sleep studies. In previous studies involving the CREs, they've used a simple model like the negligible dimensions model shown here in Figure 1. They proved to be useful, but did not capture the real-world behaviors of the electrodes. So to capture a more accurate understanding, a realistic finite element method dimensions model was developed. And using the Figure 2, the FEM model, or the realistic finite dimensions model, we were able to improve the accuracy of the surface Laplacian estimation, resulting in optimized coefficients. If we're looking at Figure 1 and Figure 2, let's compare the differences here. So here in Figure 1 with the negligible dimensions model, you'll see rings with negligible width compared to the tripolar concentric ring electrode shown in Figure 2, which has a larger recording surface, which would theoretically yield a greater detection of electrical activity. The Laplacian is the second spatial derivative of the surface potential. This provides a higher spatial resolution, and the Laplacian can be estimated through an array of single pole electrodes. The Laplacian, only CREs allow estimating the Laplacian at each electrode. And throughout this presentation, we'll be looking at different examples of how the surface Laplacian is derived. Okay, so my thesis is based on the T-lead electrodes here. T-lead is a commercially available tripolar CRE produced by the CRE Medical Corporation in Kingston, Rhode Island. Our main purpose was to quantify this difference between the suboptimal and the optimal coefficients for the T-lead. We wanted to understand the difference between the optimal and suboptimal coefficients, because in recent studies, the optimal coefficients 6 and -1 for T-lead were found to be different than those currently used 16 and -1. The difference in these coefficients can impact the diagnostic value within the estimated Laplacian signals. And here is the commercially available T-lead electrodes, and figure 4 shows a tripolar CRE with the same dimensions as the commercially available T-lead electrodes. And here you'll see the monopolar recording surface areas labeled as M1, M2, and M3. The SAS study aimed to apply the time and frequency domain signal synchrony measures to the human encephalogram data to assess the difference due to the current and optimal coefficients. The results provided insights on the impact of using the optimal coefficients on the Laplacian estimation accuracy. And the ISB study was twofold. First, we assessed how well the finite dimensions modeling estimates the Laplacian potential using the suboptimal and the optimal coefficients. Second, we analyzed the nonlinear synchrony measures between the EEG Laplacian estimates using both coefficients to compare the previously obtained linear synchrony measures from the SAS study. Okay. Thanks to Dr. Yassin Badria, his collection of EEG data was obtained in both and used in both publications. At the time, Dr. Makeyev was receiving his postdoctorate degree, so this is where we reference his 2 papers. I know that these subjects remain unidentifiable to me, but these details were provided. There were 6 healthy human subjects ranging between the ages of 24 and 40. With 1 female, the subjects were to remain motionless and seated to reduce any artifacts due to movement. The data was then recorded using a USB amplifier with normalized unit gain of 1,200 samples per second with a total duration of 1,730 seconds. The data was then bandpass filtered and recorded at a location P4 of the standard 1020 system, with the right mastoid process serving as a ground in reference. The skin to electrode impedances were kept below 5 kiloohms. Signals from the T-lead electrodes were then preamplified using a custom preamplifier with a gain of 6. So remember that this data was collected in 2006 using a custom preamplifier. 2013, I apologize, 2013, using a custom preamplifier at the time. And then you'll see in figure 5 is the T interface preamplifiers that CRE has commercially available. And you can check that on their website, the CRE Medical website. So remember that these results here on the slide are coming from the SAS paper. For the neuronal signal synchrony measures in both time and frequency domains were applied to 6 pairs of signals. These pairs included signals from the optimal and suboptimal tripolar EEG data, EEG, and the signals from the larger and smaller bipolar EEG Laplacian estimates. To assess the time domain, the cross-correlation coefficients were calculated at the maximum and 0 lag to account for any time delay between the 2 signals. To assess the frequency domain, the coherence coefficients corresponding to the frequency between 1 and 100 hertz were averaged for each segment using Welch's average modified periodogram method with an overlapping and handing window of 1,024 samples. And this is pretty much taking the 2 signals, breaking into 2 overlapping segments, and then we analyze the frequency content of each segment and then average those results. And by applying the handing window, To these segments, we reduce any of the artifacts, the unwanted artifacts. So the magnitude squared coherence was then calculated, and the coefficients corresponding to the pairwise comparisons were averaged using the full spectrum and then the individual frequency bands: delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma. Oh, let me explain the equations here. So here we have the TEG using the suboptimal coefficient 16 and -1. And if you remember the figure that we had in figure 2, we had the monopolar signals or recording surfaces labeled as M1 and M2, right? So it's the suboptimal coefficient minus times the middle ring minus the central disk minus 1 times the difference between the outer ring minus the central disk. And then here we have the second configuration using the optimal coefficients on the TEG. Here we have the optimal 6 times the difference between the middle ring minus the central disk, and then minus 1 times the difference of the outer ring minus the central disk. And then we have the third configuration, the smaller BEG, where we subtract the middle ring minus the central disk, and then the larger BEG, where we subtract the outer ring minus the central disk. Okay. The finite method, the FEM modeling method, was adopted from references 1 and 2, and that's one of Olek's studies as well. So let's go back to slide 2, figure 2. Here we are. Using figure 2, the model has a 20 by 20 mesh, which represents the chess. Over the XY plane in the first quadrant, just below the dipole, just below the mesh is a dipole which mimics the heart's electrical activity. So when signals are propagated from that dipole to the surface, the potentials reach that CRE located above the mesh, where the Laplacian and their estimates are obtained at different points of the mesh for electrode diameters ranging from 0.5 to 5 centimeters. This model was used to maximize the accuracy of the Laplacian estimation. Let's go back to slide. Did I miss this? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. We skipped a slide here. Moving on to the signal analysis on the nonlinear signal synchrony measures published in the ISB paper. So to assess the nonlinear synchrony measures, I used the normalized mutual information to test the mutual dependence between two signals. And using Shannon's entropy, the MI was computed using this equation 5. Where P of X and P of Y are the probability distributions of two signals, and then P of X and Y are the joint probability distributions. These distributions were obtained by computing the histograms of two signals and their joint histograms. The results were then normalized to fall within a range of 0 and 1. 0 indicating that there's no mutual information, and then 1 indicating that there's high mutual information being shared. We used 4 different approaches to calculate the normalizations. The first being the minimum, which is taking the mutual information and dividing that by the minimum individual signal entropies. And then we calculated the maximum NMI by taking the NMI and dividing that by the maximum of the individual signal entropies. And then to calculate the arithmetic NMIs between the two signals, dividing the mutual information by the arithmetic mean of the two individual signals. And to measure the geometric NMI, we took the mutual information and divided that by the square root of the product of the individual signal entropies. And MATLAB implementation of the NMI was adopted from Javi's group. Thank you, Javi. Okay, back to this slide. I apologize about that. The methods using the FEM modeling. So like I've said before, these are stemming from Dr. Makeyev's studies. So to evaluate the Laplacian and its estimates at various mesh points for the electrode diameter ranging between 0.5 to 5 centimeters, which is basically what I explained in figure 2. The FEM modeling was then used to compare the two realistic finite dimensions model of the Tsaile electrodes seen in figure 6A and then 6B. With their dimensions rescaled within the 9 intervals. And then here in 6C, you'll see that we have an extra configuration, and that's pretty much derived from the two existing here. The additional electrode configurations was then considered with a ratio median radii of 1 to 2. And to assess the accuracy of the Laplacian estimation, the relative error and the normalized maximum error was computed for different electrodes, where we take the analytical Laplacian and take the difference between the analytical Laplacian and the Laplacian estimation and divide that by the analytical Laplacian. And you can see that equation there is shared among, it's just done differently. So that's what we did for the FEM modeling. Oh, I forgot to mention, the smaller the errors, the more accurate the estimation. Okay, so let's talk about results published within the SAS paper. Remember, this is at least a year in between these two studies. And our main focus of this research was between the TEG suboptimal and the optimal. So here you'll see table 1. In table 1, you'll see the two synchrony measures were obtained for 6 different pairwise comparisons, where we take the maximum and the 0 lag cross correlation between the 6 comparisons. So just looking at this table here, we can see row 1, row 2, and row 3 have very high cross correlation. And then if we look at row 4, 5, and 6, we have a lower cross correlation between these signals. And looking at it closer, when we see lines 1 and 3, they have high cross correlation, but comparing that to line 2, we can see an even higher cross correlation. And so that's that there. The results on the EEG data. I'm sorry, let me just double check something. Okay, so yes, this is the nonlinear or the linear signal synchrony measures. And then here's the third signal synchrony measure for the linear synchrony measures. Published in the SAS paper. Here's the table 2. In table 2, you'll see the average coherence across the full spectrum, as well as for the individual frequency bands. And to give you a better idea of what the individual frequency bands are, this is basically just the ranges, the frequency ranges that they fall within. So delta is typically the smaller frequency range, ranging between 0.5 to 4 hertz. And then theta ranging between 4 to 8 hertz, and then alpha ranging between 8 to 12 hertz, and then the largest frequency range in gamma seen in 35 plus frequencies, or hertz, sorry. Here we see the same trend in the cross correlation or the coherence. We can see that there was a very high coherence in rows 1, 2, and 3 involving the TEG suboptimal and optimal configuration or signals. And then if you look at the lines 4, 5, and 6, we can see that they have a lower coherence here. This just tells us that there's hardly any difference in the linear synchrony measures. Okay, I'm just checking my notes, I'm sorry. So let's go to the next slide. Here are the FEM results. This results are preliminary FEM results that I presented at the Emerging Researchers National Conference back in 2004. I included the relative and the normalized maximum errors for a couple of reasons. The first being that in the ISB paper, Dr. Yi Lin produced and improved the FEM results by adding a linear interpolation with matched amplitude estimates for all 4 configurations. She also wrote the section with the normalized spatial selectivity for all 4 configurations. And second was to show that these results show that there was something off with the human data. These results show that these results only show tripolar configurations, the TCREs. And remember from a previous slide with this, I believe it's figure 6A, B, and C, this is what this is stemming from. Because when T-lead produced 2 sets of dimensions. First was the one that they patented, which is this TCRE patent optimal, using the optimal coefficients. And then the second was the second set of dimensions are stemming from the configurations or the coefficients that they published in the Journal of Sensors. So we take the optimal coefficients and then we take those 2 configurations and use the optimal and the suboptimal coefficients to compare that. And I hope you guys have your PDF graphs pulled up because I'm sure you can't see the colors here. We can see that the optimal TCRE in both configurations show very low relative and normalized maximum errors compared to the suboptimal coefficient using the second set of optimal coefficients here. So yes, so the errors are quite high, and TCRE suboptimal coefficient using the first suboptimal coefficients are quite bad too. So their errors are very, very high. Okay, the results on the EEG data continued. Remember that this table is published in the ISB paper, and we took the normalized mutual information values for the same 6 pairs of comparison pairs using the 4 different normalization approaches: the minimum, the maximum, and the arithmetic, and the geometric. And here we can see that the NMI values for the first 3 rows to be subpar compared to the excellent results of the linear synchrony measures that we published in the SAS paper. We can see the same trend here where rows 1 and 3 have some information shared compared to row 2 where they have a little bit more information being shared or mutual information being shared. Rows 4 through 6 are very low, indicating that there's hardly any mutual information being shared. So let's talk about the results that we obtained in the SAS paper. So there we saw that there was a very high signal synchrony between the tripolar Laplacian estimates for the compared signals line 1 in tables 1 and 2. Initially, that indicated that there was a difference, that the difference due to different coefficients may not be significant. Lower cross correlation and average coherence values for the larger bipolar Laplacian estimates, rows 4 through 6 on tables 1 and 2, were consistent with previous results on the Laplacian estimation accuracy. And the larger bipolar estimate was corresponding to the lowest Laplacian estimation accuracy is likely the reason why it corresponds to a lower synchrony with other higher accuracy Laplacian estimations. And the high cross correlation between the bipolar Laplacian estimate for compared signals BEG, the smaller versus larger, suggests that there are some differences in sense activity due to the larger distance from the center of the central disk. So with the obtained preliminary results from the FEM modeling suggests that indicates that the mean ratio with the relative error corresponding to suboptimal over optimal coefficients for the two approximating T-lead electrodes range between 479 to 644 times, which is a very high error. Respective ratios with the normalized maximum errors ranges from 278 to 375 times, which is just as bad. And the final results that were published in the ISB paper bring ratios down somewhat. The NMI results suggest that the optimal versus suboptimal TEG coefficients produce very different signals, indicating that T-lead users are experiencing suboptimal signal quality. And the NMI of 0.7 between the optimal and suboptimal TEG implies that they share limited information, whereas the second row of table 3 shows that there's more information being shared between the two different coefficient or signals. And the NMI results are consistent across the 4 normalization methods for all 6 signal comparisons, suggesting or supporting the robustness of our findings. So in conclusion, the ISB NMI results confirms the FEM results with human data, indicating that the difference between the suboptimal and the optimal coefficients lead to a significantly different TEG signal, suggesting that the current T-lead users may be potentially experiencing suboptimal signal quality. The use of the suboptimal coefficients in the Laplacian estimation of the Laplacian potential worsens the estimation accuracy and significantly impacts the information involving real-life data like the human EEG data. Human EEG. So thanks to this study, companies like CRE Medical could produce preamplifiers like their commercially available T interface. They may see the benefit to modify their devices using the optimal Laplacian estimate coefficient 6 and -1, like in the case of the T-lead. Futures work. So my thesis is coming to an end, but there are still some results that still need to be presented, and those will be presented at the upcoming Tribal Research Symposium in Alexandria, Virginia, where I will be presenting the intra and intersubject variability. I may also be working with Sheldon Chi, who is also, through a collaboration, and he will be applying the same methods to a different research project involving the emulation using the same human data that Dr. Badria provided. At this time, I'm currently undecided about my career path, but I do know that I would like to pursue a career as a clinical laboratory scientist. But I'm also considering applying for a position at the Diné College. I know that I need to explore both directions to find which direction or pathway aligns with my future goals. Regardless of my decision, I am committed to continuing my professional development and providing meaningful contributions to my community and my people. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming and listening to my presentation. I would like to thank Diné College, the National Science Foundation. I would also like to thank my committee members, Dr. Javier Garcia, Dr. Hakim, Ms. Barb Klein, my thesis advisor, Dr. Makeyev. And I would also like to thank Dr. Yassine Badria for collecting and sharing the human data with us. I'd also like to thank my support system, my husband, Elton, my kids, Kenley, Kennedy, and Axton, my parents, and my mom, my second mom, Elsie, and my siblings, Lisa, April, Faye, and Memphis. You guys got me through this grueling, very challenging semester. I would also like to thank Dr. John Murray for recommending me for this position here at the MEA Lab. I'd also like to thank Dr. Yaoyi Lin, Dr. Yema Baluda, Sheldon, and of course, the library staff, Ryan and Sorel, Mark, Mary. Thank you, guys. So if you'd like, you can ask your questions or share your comments. Thank you.
All right. Do the committee members would like to start with the questions, or do we open it to the public first? Okay, that probably nobody could hear that. Dr. Hakim, first question.
Thank you very much, Alana. That was really a very good presentation, and overall, that how you summarize everything that you have been able to cover through this, and I really enjoyed that work.
Thank you.
So my, not actually the question, because I was going through all the slides also, and thank you for providing the slides side by side so we can easily go through each and everything. In the beginning, you mentioned about the 6 individuals, healthy individuals whose data was collected, and most of your comparisons are based on that data that compared with the healthy individuals. So what your plans are, like, or maybe like somebody else in the lab is doing, because like measuring and correlating with the healthy individual is one thing, but when we see variety of patients who are going through different type of situations, and that is the main purpose of all this, these electrodes. So what you are planning for, like how you think that it can be done here, and how you think that this advancement that you are proposing here, how it is going to impact in that scenario?
Well, your question is, how will these electrodes improve those who are unhealthy? Is that what the question was?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, these electrodes provide a higher spatial resolution And that's what the goal here is to do, is to provide a higher spatial resolution. Because when you're looking at what they're using now, they're using like blurry images compared to a sharper image here. And so that's what we want to, that's what we're trying to create pretty much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How heavy is the device? Is there a benefit to changing material of the electrode, and is something your lab has an interest in? I'm producing an exam and do not have my speaker on. Thank you. Oh, okay. Can I use that device there?
Absolutely. Conventional.
Okay. So here is the study of the electrodes, similar to that. And then here is a single pole electrode. And your question is, how heavy is the device? Are you asking about the preamplifier device, or in the sense, the electrodes? And then you asked another question regarding the material of the electrode. Yes, the material of the electrodes makes a huge difference because we have the metals that have a better conductivity than others. So if you think about metal and gold, I think gold has a higher conductivity, so that would produce better quality for the electrodes.
Dr. Garcia Casado, Ms. Klein, as members of the committee, any questions?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for inviting me to be part of this committee. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Of course, I want to congratulate Alana for her great work done and for having the bachelor degree and the master degree at the same time. But I guess it has been very hard. And congratulations, because I think, I don't know there, but it's not very normal to have a master thesis that already has 2 published papers in international conferences, so congratulations for that too. And I will go to 1 or 2 questions, it depends.
Okay.
I think it's great that you have used real data and not only simulations, because it's true that Laplacian electrodes or CRI electrodes that permit to obtain the Laplacian estimate are very useful for different applications. But in general, it's not because they estimate the Laplacian itself, but rather because they provide that better resolution that we were mentioning. So trying to assess that effect on the resolution and that effect on how much information is changing with one configuration, with optimal coefficients, with suboptimal coefficients, I think that's very worth it. You have evaluated that in a single channel, comparing between optimal and suboptimal with different bipolar ones. That the conclusion that you can get from that is limited, but it's the conclusion that you obtain is that we are not having the same signals. That is saying this has an effect. So it's important to have those optimal coefficients. But if you want to go farther on that and to see what other effects are we going to have by using optimal and suboptimal coefficients, how would you design the experimental procedure to trying to assess those effects? Because you were limited by the existing database that you had. So out of that, you make the best of it. You only have 1 channel. But if you want to assess that improvement in the spatial resolution, maybe, how would you plan to do it? Or how would you try to assess what is that difference between having optimal and suboptimal coefficients in terms of this main asset that maybe is having better spatial resolution?
So if you
What do
design
you think should be the experimental setup, and what basic analysis would you do to see those effects, maybe with more channels, or how would you plan to continue assessing that effect of the optimal and suboptimal coefficient?
So if you're designing your next study for future work and you collect more data, would you like it to be collected for a specific application or again from healthy subjects? What kind of signals would you choose?
I think to gather appropriate data collections, I think we would have to use a control, which would involve healthy human subjects, and then maybe at a later time compare that to apply that to the epilepsy patients, or
So also trying to check in control groups and pathological.
yeah,
effects?
because I think that would be a really good study.
But okay, I think that would be great. It's in the line of what Dr. Akin was saying, that we need to go farther to see how much is it going to help for diagnosis or accurate measurement. I would recommend, if it's possible to have in the future those design, that this improvement in the spatial resolution, maybe you would need more than one channel. You were recording only in P4, and then you were checking the mutual information, how much information is shared.
Yeah.
If you have the nearby electrodes, then you can check if they share more or less information by using those optimal and suboptimal coefficients. And if with the optimal coefficients you prove that we have less common information, you have better resolution, and you can have more information about that specific area. That is one of the problems the EEG has.
Okay.
So I would recommend, if it's possible, to assess the mutual information between different channels with the different configurations for different ways.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, Dr. Javier Casado.
So, Alana, I have a question. How close do I have to go?
Probably like here.
Sorry,
How has your efforts or your degree in biomedical supported this research, and how do you think the research you've done will help you in the future, like if you go in the in the pursuit of the lab
position?
Yeah.
That's actually a really good question. I feel like this defense is based more on the biomedical engineering rather than biology. And so to compare the two, if I were to work in a laboratory setting, then it would just help me provide, it would just look at the doctors and say, hey, I worked with those electrodes. You guys are using the single dipole or the single pole electrodes to study and gather your information. But here's a study, you should maybe consider taking this information and advocating for it, basically. Okay, Dr. Hakim, I believe you have a question?
Yes, not question, just maybe again another comment. So as I mentioned, that it is really good work, and the thing is that while you are moving forward, and you mentioned about that you are interested in clinical laboratory sciences, and at the same time you are thinking of joining Diné College, and that is what we need definitely, that our own graduates come back and join the community and share what they have learned. At the same time, I'm just like bringing this to you that if you are planning to continue the same work, or which is really very good, because currently at Navajo Nation we are looking forward for all the ways that how we can try to lift that ban that we have currently on the genetic testing, and even like involving the local individuals from here in this study and doing some control plus some patients, that will be really helpful to understand, because like these are the things that we need here. And from that point of view, if you are willing to continue, I will definitely like definitely, like if any kind of support we can provide in terms of getting all these variety of approvals and everything, that will be great. So thank you again very much for all that you have done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hakim. Okay, Dr. Pruitt, I believe you have a question.
Yes. So my background includes a lot of work with microelectrodes. Texas Instruments was growing neuronal cells on silicon chips, and I was involved in developing a paper about that. But the question really is the ensemble effect, that if you're measuring from multiple places, you want to be able to get information about that potential field or the various different potential fields that exist with the brain, the alpha, the beta, the theta, and all those different.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get information from the measurement of the potential fields that is in a brain in a way that improves the medical science or gives us an ability to understand what's going on with this region of the brain as opposed to this region of the brain. Now, I think that's what has been mentioned before. The work that you've done is exceptional, seriously. But the applications of your work is in the future. And it probably is not work that you'll do, because there's thousands of scientists that are interested in potential fields, measurement of potential fields. Even as I have spoken to Olex about the measurement of geological fields, where you have a measurement device and you want to be able to get as clear understanding of what the measurement is, what measurement is should be occurring. But then you have multiple of these. So when we talk about a multiple array of microelectrodes, that's a big step.
Mm-hmm.
That's not just a PhD dissertation. That's the work of hundreds of researchers that are interested in this kind of thing. How do we measure electromagnetic potential on the scalp? My work with Carl Kriegram was we had rats, we had microelectrodes we planted into the brain, and we were feeling the whiskers. And the whiskers were giving information to specific areas up here. So that was an application that you're using a 3-ring electrode rather than a single point electrode. It's a big step.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, because I don't know the research in this area, I'm not sure that people understand that there is a big step here. Yeah, that's my comment. And again, thank you. I mean, well deserved.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If I may ask the Thesis committee members, if there is any committee members that thinks that Alana did not pass her Thesis defense.
Did not.
Yes. Does everybody agree? Is everybody willing to pass her Thesis defense?
Yes,
Yes.
100%.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
All right. We've heard from all the...
Congratulations, Alana.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure to present Alana with the plaque
Yay.
and her stole. And this Friday at the graduation at Shiprock South Campus, we are looking forward to presenting her with her hood.
Thank you, Dr. Makeyev.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations, Alana.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I believe this concludes our defense. Again, one last time, congratulations, Alana. Great job. And thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.